she's just evil. Like, there's nothing like her.
Why would she even tweet that? Like, don't you have
I think she just sits around in her evil lair whenever she runs out of Eye of Newt and small children to boil.
Hillary Clinton is one of the most disgusting human beings on the planet.
Very much so.
Always has been, always will be, and will be inserting clips on her response to Benghazi several times throughout the interview. I want to show who she is.
She's worth.
Hillary Clinton just got yanked back into the spotlight, and not by politicians or reporters, but by Tyrus himself. That's right, the ex-wrestler turned firebrand commentator is tearing the lid off her closet of secrets. And trust me, those skeletons aren't collecting dust, they're putting on a full-blown performance. This isn't a gentle roast, it's a brutal takedown, smashing straight into the twisted corners of Hillary's past like a steel chair crashing down in the middle of the ring.
Every time she talks, you kind of get why Bill did what he did. You know what I'm saying? Like, like, it's kind of like, again, I don't condone, cheating, but that's your morning.
Yeah.
You gotta kiss that before you go to bed at night, and then you gotta sleep with one eye open.
Yeah.
Because your buddy Epstein didn't off himself, and she has all this extra footage cut up in the closet. Like,
Hillary Clinton struts into the American political spotlight as if she already owns the stage, flashing a resume so endless it could pass for a CVS receipt, yet somehow failing to convince anyone she's the choice they truly want. It's almost astonishing. Decades of influence, mountains of money, a galaxy of connections, and still her political career stumbles like that kid in gym class who brags about being an athlete but can't even sink a simple layup.
We hear things that we find so fundamentally hard to believe. I mean, I'm in that category. People say things like, oh, that could never happen. But having been a close observer now for quite a number of years of our current president, you have to suspend your disbelief. And you have to do two things simultaneously. You have to both listen to what he says, because he often telegraphs what he's doing.
If you are enjoying this takedown, please hit that subscribe button. This is the woman who somehow turned losing to Donald Trump, yes, Donald Trump, into a reality. That wasn't just a political defeat, it was a Guinness World Record in public humiliation, the kind that echoes for generations. Picture it, years spent polishing her brand, plotting her destiny, cashing checks from Wall Street to Silicon Valley, only to trip headfirst into the electoral mud because she skipped Wisconsin. Wisconsin, the land of cheese, swing voters, and shattered dreams. And Hillary treated it like a throwaway square on a Monopoly board.
They wanted us to believe it was a big naughty redhead that was going around, was going to ruin the world and do all kinds of bad things to us. Turns out the catfish was, hey, we don't boo here, but for this one time you may boo.
And let's not overlook it, Hillary Clinton is the undisputed queen of contradictions. She paraded herself as the defender of the working class while pocketing speech fees that cost more per minute than most families earn in an entire month. Nothing screams woman of the people like raking in $225,000 to whisper sweet nothings to Goldman Sachs executives. It's the political equivalent of strolling into a backyard barbecue in a pantsuit stitched from caviar and insisting, relax, I totally understand your struggle.
Apology tour for lying to the American people and ruining 2 years of Trump's presidency and affecting elections with Russiagate, impeachment, and fake dossiers. Oh yeah, let's not forget the P-tape. Turns out it was the Democrats and the lefty media peeing down our backs and telling it was rain.
Her political instincts, if you can even call them instincts, have all the grace of a glitching GPS. You know the type, the one that tells you to turn left straight into a river, and for a split second you almost trust it because maybe, just maybe, the machine knows something you don't. That's Hillary's career in a nutshell. From Iraq to healthcare reform, she's mastered the art of landing on the wrong side of history, only to pivot later like she suddenly evolved. Evolved? Hardly. She just skimmed the polls late, like a student handing in an overdue essay and praying the teacher tosses a little mercy her way.
He was the most unlikable candidate in the history of presidents, and that's saying a lot.
But Biden says the same thing.
He's number two. When Biden says something, does anyone be like, oh?
Right.
No, they used to go, oh, when he's
Let's talk about the emails. Oh yes, the emails. The endless saga of secrecy and servers. Hilary's private setup was less secure than a teenager's forgotten Tumblr page, yet we were told it was just an innocent mistake. This wasn't someone forgetting to lock a diary. This was the Secretary of State parking classified intel on a system a 12-year-old with a Hotmail account could have cracked. She turned the State Department into AOL dial-up and expected the world not to notice. And then came Benghazi, the scandal that birthed 1,000 hearings and turned her into a political meme machine, famous for sitting through marathon grillings with that dead-eyed smirk as if sheer boredom could smother controversy. By 2016, her campaign wasn't strategy, it was malpractice. Democrats handed her the nomination like a family heirloom, ignoring the reality that enthusiasm for her ranked somewhere between lukewarm soup and expired yogurt. Her grand plan? Project Inevitability. Her slogan might as well have been, "Relax, I've got this." Spoiler, she didn't. Instead of winning over swing state voters, she spent more energy polishing her victory playlist. And when the results came in, she looked stunned, as if democracy itself had betrayed her.
Dealing with the Hillary Clinton emails from a couple years ago saying how she should be in jail and all this other stuff. And it's just point to point to point to point exactly what just happened, proving once and for all it had absolutely nothing to do with Hillary Clinton's emails. It had everything to do with attacking Hillary Clinton, and these people are just so desperate for it that that's what they went for. And of course the hypocrisy is just out on stage for everybody to see.
And then came the excuses. Endless, exhausting excuses. Russia, Facebook memes, the FBI, Bernie Bros, sexism, James Comey, maybe even Putin's dog walker. Everyone and everything carried the blame except the one person who actually ran the campaign. Hillary's loss wasn't some grand conspiracy. It was the universe finally delivering the reality check she'd been dodging since the 1990s. This is the same woman who wasn't just picking out China patterns. She was sweeping up the shattered pieces of Bill's scandals while trying to crown herself as a political powerhouse. And in the middle of it all, she still managed to alienate half the women in America with that infamous jab. I suppose I could have stayed home and baked cookies. Nothing screams relatable like sneering at domestic life while standing inside the White House. And let's not forget the Iraq War vote, a decision that aged about as well as a gallon of milk left to rot in the sun. When the fallout hit, she tried to backpedal, claiming she'd been misled. Right, because when you're casting a vote that sends thousands of Americans into war, it's totally fine to skip reading the fine print.
But, you know, Tyrus, and this goes back to 2016, people were reluctant to talk to pollsters and say, I like Donald Trump. And now, fast forward 8 years later, essentially they're saying, if you like him, you're in a cult. Do you really want to be in a cult?
If the cult that Hillary doesn't like, yeah, sign me in. What do I need? Is it a red hat? I'll get one.
As Secretary of State, she racked up miles like a travel addict, boasting about visiting over 100 countries as if her passport stamps were proof of diplomatic genius. But let's be honest, shaking hands in airports doesn't make you a foreign policy mastermind. It makes you an overpriced tourist with a government jet. And then came her attempts to woo younger voters. Pure unintentional comedy. Who could forget the infamous "I carry hot sauce in my purse" moment? Hillary campaigning felt like watching Windows 95 try to run TikTok. It just wasn't built for it. Her speeches had all the energy of a forced HR PowerPoint, complete with bullet point cadences, robotic hand gestures, perfectly rehearsed pauses, and canned smiles. Technically flawless, emotionally empty. She wanted to be the cool grandma who won hearts, but she ended up more like the stern librarian who finds you for whispering.
When the losing side, or someone, she's just a very unlikable person and will say anything to get this attention. But here's the thing, it's changed. People, America has changed. We no longer listen to that stuff. Now when they say it, we go, that's why I didn't vote for you.
What makes Hillary so fascinating is that she had every advantage stacked in her favor. Name recognition, check a polished political machine, check money, endless experience, decades of clout, all there. And yet she still slammed into that invisible wall of mistrust. To the public, she wasn't inspiring. She was calculating. Every move looked scripted. Every line seemed pre-approved by a focus group. She wasn't leading. She was a political algorithm spitting out talking points. And then came the dynasty problem. Americans don't like the whiff of monarchy. The Clintons, much like the Bushes, acted as if their last name was a golden ticket to power. But voters don't take kindly to being told the heir has already been chosen. So Hillary lingered like a political ghost, haunting the Democratic Party, resurfacing just enough to remind everyone she could have been president. And in her mind, should have been. Her interviews drip with that unshakable bitterness, as if the nation collectively made the wrong choice and now owes her an apology. News flash, Americans don't send apology cards for elections.
Her logic makes no sense, but why would she say it? You know, I mean, we can't just keep saying TDS. It's something else. It is, I think these are I think they're ego-damaged people.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't make any sense.
Look, she was going to be the first woman president.
Yes.
And who
Isn't
is
that the
she?
best?
If Hillary Clinton has one undeniable talent, it's survival, scandals, defeats, ridicule. She soaks them up like a political cockroach that simply refuses to die. Whitewater, Travelgate, Lewinsky, Benghazi, the emails, any one of those could have buried another politician. But Hillary, she just kept marching forward, chin held high, as if sheer persistence would eventually force the world to hand her the crown she's been chasing since the 90s. Her legacy is messy. She wanted to be the symbol of progress, the first woman president, yet she ended up as the symbol of political disconnect, a cautionary tale of what happens when ambition steamrolls authenticity. And here we are, years later, still talking about Hillary Clinton not because she inspires, but because she frustrates. She stands as a reminder that political power without true connection is empty, that entitlement is not a strategy, and that even the most carefully scripted campaigns can collapse when they ignore the most crucial piece of democracy: people.
Woman should be in jail. Literally, Hillary Clinton should be behind bars. And so should the people who worked for her who did this. This is so blatantly corrupt. She wanted to distract from her email scandal. She cooked up a plan to accuse Trump of being a Russian agent in order to distract from her own legitimate scandal. She made up a scandal about Trump being a Russian.
Hillary Clinton wanted the history books to hail her as a pioneer, a fighter, the woman who shattered the ultimate glass ceiling. Instead, she's remembered as the candidate who lost to Donald Trump, the cautionary tale for every politician who dares to believe inevitability alone is enough to win. And maybe that's the cruelest roast of all. After decades of speeches, scandals, battles, ambition, and relentless calculation, her legacy boils down to one brutal punchline. She could have been president. She thought she should have been president, but she wasn't. And then there are the scandals: Whitewater, Travelgate, Filegate. If it ended in gate, odds are it circled her orbit. The Clintons turned controversy into a family tradition, like a twisted reunion game of who can spark the juiciest scandal before dessert. Take Whitewater, that Arkansas real estate fiasco from the early years. Most Americans still can't explain it, and that's the point. When your financial dealings are so murky that even historians get migraines unpacking them, that's hardly the cleanest launchpad for a presidential bid. It was like playing Monopoly and somehow ending up with an FBI investigation instead of Boardwalk.
Greatest achievement Trump ever did when they read the history books. It'll be like, maybe there'll be these wars will be solved in economy, but then there'll be a two-page spread on how he beat Hillary and how that will always be. He'll be on Mount Rushmore for that. They should do like called a Mount Trump, where they have the heads of the people he beat. So they've already got Hillary, and they got Kamala, and then maybe he can run again. You know, we still don't know, right?
One of his best lines ever was when he was first elected, and the people around him said, "We got to go for Hillary now. Lock her up, lock her up." And he said, "Nah. Just let it go. She lost. She's going to have to live with that for the rest of."
And then there's the Clinton Foundation, marketed as a shining beacon of global philanthropy. Sure, it sprinkled in some good deeds, but they came wrapped in speaking fees, foreign donations, and cozy handshakes with world leaders who suddenly discovered their charitable spirit. Strangely enough, that generosity dried up the moment Hillary's political clout faded. Turns out people weren't donating to save the world. They were donating to save their access to power. Who knew charity could double as a political vending machine, insert check, receive favor, and let's not forget Uranium One, a saga that sounded less like serious policy and more like the title of a bad James Bond knockoff. The story? A Russian company gained control of uranium, and Hillary's State Department signed off. Conspiracy theories spun it into wild science fiction, but even the optics were disastrous. Yet Hillary's greatest weakness has always been her inability to read the room. Case in point, the infamous basket of deplorables remark. Politically, it was like screaming at half the dinner guests before asking them to pass the potatoes. In one neat soundbite, she insulted millions of voters, then acted stunned when they didn't line up to support her. Who would have guessed that calling people human garbage isn't exactly a winning campaign strategy?
This sort of haggard old woman. I ran against her in 2006 for the Senate. She was riding high. She was going to be the first woman president. The world was at her feet, and now look at her.
Yeah, is that the greatest?
I mean, you don't even want to look at her.
Done. The greatest achievement Trump ever did when they read the history books. It'll be like maybe there'll be these wars will be solved in economy, but then there'll be a two-page spread on how he beat Hillary and how that will always be. He'll be on Mount Rushmore.
The irony is, Hillary Clinton might have made a competent president, organized, policy savvy, detail obsessed, but competence alone doesn't win elections. Voters don't want a candidate who sounds like they're grading homework when they speak. They want a leader, not a bossy hall monitor. Hillary craved the crown, but never figured out how to win the kingdom. And in the end, her obsession with power became the very thing that unraveled her. Decades of climbing, scheming, and maneuvering all funneled into 2016. The coronation she believed was her destiny, but then, in a Shakespearean tragedy penned by reality TV producers, it all collapsed because she couldn't connect with the very people she needed most. Book tours, documentaries, interviews, they all carried the same undertone. I should have been president. It's become the world's longest acceptance speech for an award she never won. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party has struggled to move on, yet Hillary's shadow still lingers, like political glitter that refuses to vacuum out of the carpet.
She is right that the kids on the subway aren't scared, though, but that's because they're in gangs.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, per Katie's point earlier, though, she is essentially, if you follow her logic, violent crime, good, leave it alone.
Yeah, that's great.
The bitter irony is that Hillary Clinton spent her entire career chasing history, and she made it, just not the way she dreamed. She became the first woman to come within striking distance of the presidency, but also the first nominee to lose to a man who treated scandals like merit badges. Instead of shattering the glass ceiling, she became the glass ceiling, tough, transparent, and blocking everyone behind her from moving forward. And that's her legacy: brilliance tangled with blunders, ambition fused with arrogance, resilience coated in robotic coldness. She could have been the trailblazer who redefined politics, but instead she stands as the cautionary tale of elitism gone wrong. She wanted the world to remember her as the woman who changed history. Instead, she's remembered as the one who proved that inevitability is not a strategy, and entitlement is not a trait voters admire. She dreamed of being unforgettable, and she is, but for all the wrong reasons.